you so afraid of?
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. So, as everybody knows by now, Kang the Conqueror has been replaced with Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. Now, we have a theory, though, that the threat of Doom was always lingering out there in the multiverse, and that He Who Remains' greatest fear wasn't a variant of himself, he was afraid of Dr. Doom. And all of this connects to the mysterious beacon in the Shang-Chi post-credit scene and Loki's ascension to the multiversal throne in Loki Season 2. And we think that this was all part of He Who Remains' ultimate plan to keep Doom from taking over and destroying everything. Now, later in the video, I'm very excited to show you guys some new merch designs that we have been working so hard on. Some of these I can't wait to buy for myself, but like I said, we'll talk about that later in the video, but you're gonna love them. They're super cool. The Multiverse saga, especially the Loki series, did a lot to set up the next two Avengers movies, as well as the overall future of the MCU. And just because Jonathan Majors and Kang are no longer in the picture, that doesn't mean that all of that setup was for naught. And we think that Kang, or He Who Remains to be more specific, will still have a major role to play in the Multiverse saga, even if that role is off screen. We think that Loki, even now as he sits on that throne, we think that he is still walking the path that was paved by He Who Remains.
I paved the road. You just walk down it.
A path designed to protect the multiverse from its actual biggest threat, Dr. Doom. So, in the Loki Season 1 finale, He Who Remains, a variant of Kang who won the multiversal war and now rules over the sacred timeline, he reveals to Loki that his biggest fear is himself.
And what are you so afraid of?
Me.
Now, at the time, this was of course in reference to He Who Remains' variants and the multiversal war that ensued between them. The sacred timeline and the TVA were designed by He Who Remains to prevent other versions of himself from coming into power, and to keep himself in control of the multiverse as its supreme ruler. He Who Remains says in the Loki Season 1 finale that even if he were to be killed, and even if the multiversal war were to happen again, he would win it and wind up right back there on the throne anyways.
An infinite amount of me start another multiversal war, and I just end up right back here anyways.
So this was our first hint that we were in an unbreakable loop that always puts He Who Remains back in control, because he never truly loses that control. In that Season 2 finale, it becomes clear that everything Loki did for the entire season was still part of He Who Remains' plan.
I told you. Reincarnation, baby.
He Who Remains was never truly scared because he was always in control. Even in death, he knew that his failsafe would kick in, and that failsafe being the multiversal loom. The loom is a device that takes a collection of timelines and winds them together into one sacred timeline, allowing for them to run parallel to one another and to exist in harmony. And as for the other timelines,
when the loom is overloaded with branches, it deletes the ones that aren't supposed to be there.
So we don't think that He Who Remains was ever truly scared of his variant selves. He's handled them before, and he's confident that if he had to, he could handle them again. But that confidence comes from him knowing it all.
I know it all.
He knows his variants, he knows Loki, and the things he knows are the things he can control. Now, while it's implied come the end of Loki Season 2 that Loki was able to outwit He Who Remains and ultimately defeat him, we think that Loki's ascendance to the throne was still all a part of He Who Remains' ultimate plan to save the multiverse from Dr. Doom.
Oh, hey there, fellas. What time is it?
Yeah, I don't know, man. We're not a clock store. Time doesn't actually exist here.
Oh, okay. Were we too harsh on him?
I mean, I think so. He's in here all the time.
Well, then we should get him something nice for Christmas, like a dune buggy.
Or we could get him a nice watch, like this one from Holzkern.
Holzkern, did you say?
Yeah, I mean, let's give him this watch. It's called Askia, and it's made from walnut and marble. I know, it's cool, right? See, Holzkern specializes in one-of-a-kind products made from wood and other natural materials, and they're the sponsor of this video. Guys, I love my Holzkern watch so much because it is so unique. The dial is actually made from poplar fig leaf. That's what I love so much about Holzkern. They make their products in small quantities, so every item meets a high standard of quality that's going to last you a very long time. That is also why these make perfect gifts. They're made from natural materials, and I like knowing that all of their wood is FSC certified and that they are working to fight deforestation.
Oh, so they just have watches?
Oh no, they have a lot more than that. For instance, maybe we can give them this bandlet called Prelude, made with koa wood. In fact, for a limited time only, Holzkern is having their biggest sale of the year, where you can get up to an exclusive 30% off by clicking my link in the description or our pinned comment. It's a perfect opportunity to find that gift for that special someone, or to treat yourself to something unique and high quality.
Oh, hey there, fellas.
Hey man, guess what? We got you this gift.
Wow, thanks. Wow, this is great. But do you, have anything for my wife?
Super demanding that you went straight there, but yes, you could give her this composition gem made from moonstone and silver. It's unique, natural, and truly one of a kind. You see, Holzkern is a small family-owned company based in Austria that has served over 1 million happy customers. They also offer free express worldwide shipping with products typically arriving within 2 to 5 business days. And remember, right now they're having their biggest sale of the year where you can get an exclusive 30% off by clicking my link in the description or the pinned comment. So if you're looking for a great gift or just a unique accessory for yourself, I would take advantage of this sale. Up to 30% off from November 19th through December 2nd. The link is in the description, helps out our channel, it's a great gift to shop for, don't miss out. Now, back to what I was saying. So the Loki Season 2 finale ended in a bittersweet fashion. We don't have time to retread every single timey-wimey detail from that series, but essentially Loki is holding the very strands of the fabric of all reality together, allowing for free will to exist without the entire multiverse collapsing in on itself. This ending gave the impression that Loki won and had finally broken from He Who Remains' grasp, and that he was finally free from his Ouroboros, his never-ending loop. Now, in an Ouroboros, choice does not exist. There's just the illusion of choice. But we think that Loki and the multiverse may still be trapped in that Ouroboros, and despite being gone, He Who Remains' plan is still intact and unfolding before our eyes, and that He Who Remains is destined to return.
See you soon.
And there's evidence for this in Deadpool and Wolverine, where we learned that the sacred timeline still exists and that the TVA is still primarily focused on its survival.
And we're in charge of defending what's known as the sacred timeline. Holy
There's also this deleted scene that basically confirms the theory that the sacred timeline could be the trunk of the tree, and all the other realities are the branches.
Your universe is not the only one in existence. Your world may seem singular to you, but really it's a teeny tiny weeny speck on a vast cosmic canvas. In reality, the only universe considered the true universe exists on the sacred timeline, and it is guarded zealously by all of us here at the TVA.
Now, when a tree gets sick, that sickness starts at the tip of a branch and then works its way down to the trunk to infect and kill the entire tree. And the branch dies backwards, just like we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine.
See how it decays from the inside? This is how a reality dies.
What's an anchor beam?
Now, this is why the TVA used to clip branches.
We used to just prune these things. Simple, elegant, efficient. But I'm told the TVA doesn't like to do that anymore.
But now they seemingly just let them die on their own, and they clip them last minute before their death hits the main trunk. Now, we know from the Loki Season 2 finale that the Kang variants are still out there and are being monitored by the TVA.
I guess one of them caused a little bit of a ruckus on 616 adjacent realm, but they handled it, so we're all good for now.
And we think that is all part of He Who Remains' plan to allow for himself to come into existence once again and come back into power. Our theory is that He Who Remains is not actually from the sacred timeline, and that his original variant that we heard mention of in the Season 1 finale is from one of these branching universes. So that could explain why He Who Remains needed Loki to replace him and run the multiverse his way. Because under Loki, these other branches are able to exist, and those branches existing will allow for the He Who Remains variant to come into existence, all tying back to that Ouroboros. And eventually, the variant will ascend to the throne as planned. Now, before, we thought that He Who Remains ascended to the throne by winning a war with his own variants. But what if his biggest foe in that war was actually Dr. Doom? And what if Loki is key to He Who Remains winning that war? What if He Who Remains realized that he couldn't beat Doom no matter how many times he tried, but that Loki could? Now, we did a whole video a while back before Robert Downey Jr. was even cast as Dr. Doom, explaining why Loki was the new Tony Stark.
Beg your pardon.
I mean, think about it. Both Tony and Loki grew up with silver spoons in their mouths. They both have complicated relationships with their fathers. Both went down a dark path and were a-holes to everybody around them. But then they both had life-changing traumatic experiences that changed their lives and turned them into self-sacrificing heroes. Thematically, Loki was the perfect choice to be the hero going toe-to-toe with this villain saga. I mean, this is the Multiverse saga, and as we've said it many times before, this is a saga about choice and how the choices we make can change everything. The Loki series was all about a fight for free will, a fight for choice. Not only Loki's literal fight for the multiverse to have free will, but his own personal fight to buck the trend of what it means to be a Loki.
You weren't born to be king, Loki. You were born to cause pain and suffering and death. That's how it is. That's how it was.
That's how it will be.
Loki was always the perfect choice to fill the shoes of Tony Stark in this new saga. He's the villain turned hero that can take on the MCU's next big bad. And now, that big bad is none other than a villain variant of Tony Stark. In a saga all about things being turned on their head because of the tiniest choices, a hero Loki versus a villain Tony would be perfect. Loki being the only one that can stop Tony Doom would explain why He Who Remains allowed for Loki to take over. So Loki's management of the multiverse allowed for He Who Remains to exist, but his way of doing things isn't sustainable. In Loki's multiversal tree, incursions are still happening, and universes are still dying.
That is what happens when a universe loses their anchor being.
So that's why He Who Remains will still plan to retake his throne once the multiversal war ends, when Loki has defeated Doom.
Oh, and hey there, person, we got some Dr. Doom-inspired human shirts up on our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com.
Hey, that's right, buddy. We have the I Hate You 3000, a parody of the Iron Man Mark I armor wearing Dr. Doom's green cloak, and we also have Somehow Robert Downey Returned, and this awesome portrait inspired by Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, featuring Tony Stark giving life to Ultron. We also have a ton of new items that I finally get to tell you about. This is Marty McFly in Cloud City, a parody of this.
My name is Darth Vader.
This evil will always triumph because good is dumb. And Grogu booping a Raincor's nose, plus this awesome Loki gator coming out of the toilet.
Yeah, and shopping our merch store helps keep the lights on. Thanks so much. Now back to the video.
Oh, that's a great job, buddy. High five.
Hey, person, I think that TV person is glitching.
And the overall theme of the Multiverse saga is choice. And the overall theme of the Multiverse saga is choice.
No, that's just his thing here lately. So remember, in Loki Season 2, He Who Remains says,
I was here, alone, at the end of time, keeping watch.
and this is the moment that Loki realizes what he has to do in order for the multiverse to be free.
I understand.
Now, the difference between Loki and He Who Remains is that Loki's method seemingly requires him to literally hold reality together using his magic, whereas He Who Remains used science to make the multiverse hold itself together. He Who Remains' approach was more calculated and cold, whereas Loki's has to come more from the heart. And while Loki's way of doing things may seem better because it allows for more universes to live and for free will to exist, it also allows for entire realities to die. Whereas He Who Remains' way took away free will and limited the number of realities that could exist. But it did keep them safe, and they never had to worry about their reality crumbling.
I keep you safe.
Like Thanos, Kang viewed his method as merciful.
I call that mercy.
Can't you see what I'm offering here is mercy?
Whereas Loki, like Tony, is hard-headed and wants to save everyone. Loki right now thinks that he successfully bucked He Who Remains' way of doing things. He thinks that he saved the multiverse. But with Doomsday and Secret Wars on the way, we know that Loki will soon be faced with a bitter truth. The multiverse is very far from safe. Deadpool and Wolverine has already shown us that universes can and will die under Loki's control. And this sad truth is accepted by the TVA as an inevitable consequence of free will.
You spared your timeline from extinction.
Now, come the end of Avengers Secret Wars, I do think that Loki and the Avengers will finally crack the code on how to have a safe and functioning multiverse. And I think that part of that will be by preventing universes from crossing over. There's actually a theory here in the real world that if the multiverse really exists, our universe and all the other universes exist within their own personal sphere-like bubbles, and nothing within those bubbles can interact with what's inside another. And this real scientific theory makes me think of the end of the 2015 Secret Wars comics, where we see the son of Reed and Sue Storm, Franklin Richards, use his reality manipulation powers to create these bubble universes. In the MCU, we could see Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, be the reality manipulator who uses her powers to create these new universes. Universes with barriers, like the barrier of her hex. And this barrier will prevent cross-multiversal travel, thus preventing incursions. And in a meta sense, this will do away with the multiverse for future MCU sagas post-Secret Wars. So let me explain how He Who Remains and Doom play into all of this. We think that in Avengers Doomsday, we'll see Doom on a mission to destroy the multiverse entirely and have all of reality exist only in the Void. And the Void will take the place of Battleworld from the Secret Wars comics. And Doom will rule the Void just like he ruled Battleworld in the comics. And this is an identical plan to Cassandra Nova's in Deadpool and Wolverine.
I'm going to use your little time ripper, and I'm going to destroy this universe, and the next, and the next, and the next, until all that's left is the Void.
The only difference being that Doom will succeed. So we don't really have time to recap the entirety of the 2015 Secret Wars comic run, but essentially the multiverse is destroyed by incursions that Doom helped to trigger because he knew that they were inevitable. Doom creates Battleworld, a place for all remaining existence to essentially land and to be ruled by him. So this is what we expect to see happen in Doomsday and Secret Wars, except Battleworld will become the Void. In those comics, Doom's way of doing things did save a lot of people, but his methods certainly had their drawbacks, and Reed Richards finds a better way forward. Doom concedes the fight, and the multiverse is reborn. And we see Universe 616, the mainline Marvel universe, and the Marvel's Ultimate Universe, where characters like Miles Morales live. Those universes basically combine into one. Now in the comics, Doom uses the powers of the Beyonders. The Beyonders are basically omnipotent beings that we should probably do an explainer on soon. But essentially, the Beyonders have the power to control reality and the multiverse. Now, before Jonathan Majors was let go and Marvel pivoted away from Kang, it was rumored that we would see the Beyonder in Secret Wars and that he'd be played by Majors and be a variant of Kang, kind of combining the characters of Prime Kang and the Beyonder into one. And the Beyonder would probably be revealed to be the same variant as He Who Remains. Now, with Majors out, that becomes a little more complicated. So maybe they'll scrap the whole Beyonder thing and just have Loki be the one who Doom steals power from to control the multiverse.
That makes sense.
And while Loki does serve as a good conduit for replacing He Who Remains in this overarching story, and this keeps all of the setup from the Loki series relevant moving forward, we have to remember that the Loki series wasn't the only MCU project that was laying groundwork for these next two Avengers movies. We have done several videos on here talking about Quantumania, Ms. Marvel, and Shang-Chi, and how they were setting the stage for the 10 rings and the bangles to be the MCU's version of the quantum bands and the nega bands. The quantum and nega bands both being these powerful relics that you wear in your forearm to control and manipulate energy and reality. In Ms. Marvel, when they found the bangle, it was in a tomb marked with the symbol of the 10 rings, and it was on the arm of a blue corpse.
Faria, Celine, I found it.
Now, that blue corpse was probably a Kree, and they have a connection to the bangles in the MCU and in the comics. But Colton has theorized that this blue arm could be revealed to be Loki, whose natural skin color is blue. So again, we're not going to retread this entire theory in this video, but the short of it is that we believe the 10 rings and the bangles are connected and will serve a similar role in the Multiverse Saga as the Infinity Stones did in the Infinity Saga. And we believe that the mysterious beacon that was found within the 10 rings could be a distress signal or a map in general to the man in charge of the multiverse, Loki. So Colton, tell us about this cool theory you found.
Yeah, so this Reddit user pointed out that the flashing beacon we saw in the post-credit scene of Shang-Chi looks a lot like the multiversal tree we saw in Loki Season 2. And the theory is that this flashing beacon is the god of stories himself, Loki. And this makes a lot of sense because we know that Loki is likely going to be targeted by Doctor Doom in these next two Avengers movies, because in order for Doom to take over the multiverse, he'll first need to dethrone Loki and probably take his power like he does in the Secret Wars comics when he takes the power of the Beyonder.
Well, yeah, but Shang-Chi came out before Loki Season 2.
Well, we do have to remember two things. One, time is relative. There really isn't a such thing as before and after when it comes to a character who exists outside of time. But we can also cite this MCU timeline book, which sets the events of Loki Season 1 and Season 2 before everything else in Phase 4 and before everything else in the Multiverse Saga. So yes, at the time Shang-Chi takes place, Loki is already on his throne.
Got it. Okay, so I'm really digging this theory that the 10 Rings beacon is actually a path to Loki. It's got the same vibe as the Sith holocron from Star Wars having the map to Palpatine.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And I love the idea of having all of that set up with He Who Remains and Kang still being significant to the story that's unfolding in Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars. I mean, I personally think they should recast Kang and just have him come back into the fold. It would be super cool to see the Avengers and Doom team up to take him down once they realize that they're still trapped in his Ouroboros. But even if we never see Kang or He Who Remains again, we can still have Loki reference him and his influence and the overall dictatorial state that he found the multiverse in before he took over. And we can have Loki trapped between a rock and a hard place when he encounters Doom, because Doom will represent the opposite side of the same coin as Kang. He Who Remains' way of doing things was very tyrannical, but it protected reality from Doom and at least allowed for some universes to still exist in harmony. Whereas Doom represents the consequences of Loki's free-flowing multiverse. It all comes back to He Who Remains' great line about the devil you know.
You came to kill the devil, right? Well, that's what.
I keep you safe.
But come the end of Secret Wars, once Loki realizes that Kang was scared of Doom, and perhaps Doom was scared of Kang, and he finds himself in the middle of their war, that will be the catalyst for Loki, Wanda, Doctor Strange, Reed Richards, Peter Parker, and the others to put their heads together and find an alternate path forward. And just like in the comics, we could see Doom submit and admit defeat and hand over his power. Because deep down, this Tony Stark variant of Doctor Doom isn't a bad man. He's just a victim of his own savior mentality. But we want to know what you guys think. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, or you can at me on X, Blue Sky, or Threads. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.